Yo, yo, yo. This is our first ever live stream here, and I wanted to do something in the vertical format to see how that works for y'all. As well, what we'll be going over here is a 2,300 square foot epoxy flake floor that we completed based upon a leak that this area had. They previously had tile and a lot of carpet down, and what we did was we really went to town onto it. So, I'm not too sure how many people will join or if anybody will join at all, but essentially just coming here for y'all, answering some questions, kind of going through all the process for you. I have the whole video here again, 2 hours, 41 minutes total, going through all the prep work of it, all the patching, as well as a couple little things that we had to go through with the process. Additionally, for the prep and as well all the base coat, we used a moisture vapor barrier base coat from Resin Works here, and we did a full coverage flake floor in the steamboat variation, as well as a polyaspartic top coat over the whole thing, 92% solids onto it. So as you can see, just starting here, grinding through the floor, putting some work in. Add some PCDs onto this as well, actually as well, because of the issue there with a lot of the glue that was onto the floor. As you can see, we're really tearing it up though. This video here is probably at about uh, probably like almost 10 times speed, I would say, but grinding through about, approximately 600 square feet per hour onto the system here for you on the SACE 6KP propane 25-inch machine. Total beast of a machine. Huge fan of it. And as well, again, not sure if we'll ever have many viewers or I'll be talking to here with myself forever. But again, if you have any questions, let me know. Essentially, just going back and forth with it. I think that they also are going to eventually cross cut this too, but they started out with the regular cut onto it. And let me also just pull this up here. Wanted to get this onto my phone here as well too so I can see. Perfect. Perfect. All right, we are live. So yeah, he's just taking some work onto it, keeps going through, get rid of more of that glue that we have there onto the floor. Used to work with a Prep Master Junior initially, a 20-inch machine. We had to wobble it a little bit back and forth every time that we worked on it. We liked it quite a bit. I still use it, but we've transitioned now over to the planetary 25-inch here. With that one, we still use that primarily onto basements as necessary due to how well we can get them down the stairs. That's about 400 pounds. The SACE here is about 800 pounds, so getting that thing down a basement is damn near impossible comparatively. Let me just pull up the chat here just in case anybody has any questions. Let me just pull up the chat. Perfect. And as you can see, we're really trying to get a nice cream onto there. So we want to really grind through the concrete. You don't want any kind of visible, you want very visible scratch patterns, but you don't want it to be so noticeable that you just have regular concrete and then you have your scratch patterns. Really trying to get as much of a grind onto it as we possibly can so that the base coat has the best chance for adherence onto it there as well too. Glue is pretty thick in this area, so as you can see, he's taking the back onto that one there. Just moving, going as fast as necessary. It's a pretty great project that we completed. I think it was a total of about 3 days onto that for all of the grinding, the prep. A couple things we could have done a little bit different onto this one as well is, as you can see, he's grinding the walls there right now, and then we'll take the hand grinder up against it afterwards. In most places, we did grind first with the hand grinders, and instead, what we could have done is just this initially. Take the large machine super close up, as long as we're not grinding the concrete too much in those areas, so that it ends up being too, um, not flat, but so that it's a little bit deeper in some of those areas. So that would have been one way that we could have really, really taken it to the next level there. A lot of tile glue over in this area too. And as you can see, just really working the machine. Again, weighs about 800 pounds, so it's quite heavy to work with. But at the same time, once it starts to move with itself, you can really get some pretty precise movement with it, as long as the ground's pretty flat. You don't have to worry about it whipping too much or getting in your way. Maneuver it through all kinds of tight places, and yeah, it works out well. Quite thick in this area to grind off and everything, but he's working it. Didn't say anything about our vacuum, but vacuum that we like to use as well is from STI. It is an STI 3003 AR vacuum. Probably cost, it does 300 CFMs, automatic pulsing vacuum, so 3 motor head vacuum. Usually you can plug it into normal outlets, about a 110 volt outlet. This is also a thrift store, so we just got people always coming around trying to say, is the place open? Can we get into here? Unfortunately, a little busy right now. But with that vacuum, though, we do really like it a lot. It can hold quite a bit, and we also did some upgrades to it recently that make it even more useful. We'll upload a video here for y'all. But essentially, this machine is very, very strong. Works exactly how we need it to. Um, and we like it a lot too. And especially with the upgrades that we've done to it, it's pretty insane nowadays with it. And generally will work really well. Let me skip ahead here. I think I got a little bit. There we go. Back into it. Grinding some more of the rooms. Back into here now. As they're watching him. This is on that big hallway that they have right in front of that door that we were just at there. Still grinding away. Again, a lot of glue all over this place, as you can see. Pretty nasty, but PCD is taking really good care of it. That would be polycrystalline diamonds. Essentially, what's happening is they have more abrasiveness to themselves and a lot more rigid than your normal grinding diamonds that are just trying to grind the surface. They're actually trying to continually take out whatever is down there, be it the glue, and just really break up the bonds that it has so that they can keep grinding over it, break up all that stuff, and then grind through it, knock it off, grind, grind, grind into there. And again, if y'all have any questions, feel free to let me know anytime, but keep going with it. And again, awesome machine. The Saces, really liked them a lot. You have the weights. We put the weights down onto this one too as well, just so we can get a little bit more head pressure as we're grinding there with it. Yeah, let me see if I can get, if they're gonna redo this angle. Yeah, nice. Get right up to the wall, and then we'll take care of that with the hand grinders afterwards too as well. A lot of small rooms into this one to take care of, and as you can see now, he's hand grinding that. And now back to the big grinder here, main space as well too. Again, 2,300 square feet. This room here, I think is about 800 to 1,000, if I remember correctly, for what we were dealing with. And then the other rooms, we're making it up. There was 2 bathrooms that we had to deal with, 2 main rooms, just knocking some. There's Lucas, my guy Lucas, running on a 5-inch, I believe, right there. It's got a press down spring loaded shroud as well too, so you can always be as low to the ground that you need to. Not have to worry about it being too close onto what you got going on there as well. This area here too as well had a lot of grinding. So he's already grinded this area. The glue here and just the repairs that they did were pretty enormous. So he's just going over it one last time. I think it's already been gone over twice already, but what is the third time, at that point? Just to make sure that everything turns out really well for everything that we're trying to achieve here. All that's what we got going on. What do you guys think they're talking about? This is also set up on our gimbal. That's why you kind of see it following and watching and all that kind of stuff. We like it quite a bit. It gets a good view onto everything that's going on onto there. And onto this one again, straight cross all the way through, and then they back all the way through at a 90-degree angle for that final grind onto it, and then they start to work onto the patching afterwards. In some cases, again, like I was saying, it can be more worthwhile to go and use this big grinder to go up against the walls first, and then go over again with the hand grinders so that they have just a small area that they actually have to grind right up against the wall, as opposed to having to do the whole basically 5 inches with that grinder onto it, the hand grinder. So we quite like doing that, and it can be very beneficial to do that too as well onto there for the guys. We like to use the rack attacks too as well. They're usually very nice with the hand grinders so that you don't have to be on your hands and knees, especially for quite a few hours, not hurt your knees, and just be very comfortable with it as well too. Going right over it again, as you see, just some thick stuff, dude. Thick. a lot of fun to deal with, and needing to go a little bit slower as well too, so that we can ensure that we're still grinding all the way through it, not missing a drop. As you see, he's kicking a little bit of it there so that he can see, am I getting a good enough cut onto this or am I not? And then going off of that. Still checking, getting a good enough cut, determine the speed at which somebody can move on to that. And back. One last time back, just so that you can make sure that you are, again, all the way getting through it. As you can see, sometimes it can be a little bit tedious, but it is worthwhile for the end result, as well as making sure that nothing is too high or too low for all the grinding that people have going on there as well too. Checking it again, make sure that there's still get a good cut onto the concrete there as well. And I think this is probably the final pass that I think he's going to do onto this area as he goes on to the next one there. Again, just barely overlapping them. You don't have to be too crazy with it. You want to overlap maybe 20 to 30% of your last pass, because as it goes further on to the head of the diamond, it's going to make it have less pressure overall, and you're also going to have less grinding passes from the areas that are right onto the edges and in the middle there, if you think about it as well too. So important to overlap just a little bit of a hair onto that every time for you as well too. And also, I was just saying, if y'all have any questions about any of this stuff, or just, concrete coatings, grinding, prep work, any of that in general, videos should be here for quite some time. So feel free to ask anytime. Let me see if this one's gonna go or if it just got cut out there. Let's see. All right, so he's back grinding that one there. And going again, just super slow speed. Make sure that the cuts are still there. I believe he's still using the polycrystalline diamonds for the grinding there as well too. A couple other things that you can do too, if you find that it's very hard to grind through what you're dealing with at that time, you can put a little bit of like black sand down onto the surfaces. You don't need too much, but what that'll help is cleaning your diamonds out as it's grinding. Also give a little bit more of a abrasive surface for your diamonds as well too, so that they can grind through all of that and continue to clean themselves as they're trying to go right back into a pass continuously onto that new diamond or onto that new mastic glue or whatever you're cutting. And as you can see here too, doing quite a bit of an overlap, even more, probably like 70% overlap here, just because of how thick that stuff is onto the ground there at that time too. I think we lost this camera there. Let's see if we can get it back. There we go. As you can see, taking another pass there, right back onto it. Same stuff. Little cuts just so that they can ensure that they're actually getting through into what the goal is there. Soon enough, we'll have some electric units that'll just be remote controlled. Can't wait till those days happen. Running like two electric or two remote controlled grinders at the same time. That'll be pretty fun, pretty crazy. Checking that grind again too. Just moving a little bit of that dust so they can see what's going on there. More passes, slowly but surely getting more of that off. As you can see, kind of in that mid area. Let's see if I have it. As you can see in this mid area, you can kind of see a little bit of the abrasiveness left onto it. So I was going back onto that next pass, ensuring that he's really getting a good cut straight through that. And again, overlapping about basically 80% at this time just to keep getting over that same cut that we already had onto there. Keep checking just to make sure it's still clear, getting through. Are the diamonds cutting how we want them to cut? Vacuum bag is full now, so you're gonna swap that one out. Really takes a lot more, a lot more bags as that's occurring, just because what's happening there. Whoops, went back a little bit too far. What's happening there is we are continually needing to make sure that all of this is super clear, because as you can see, this stuff is nasty. It's a little hard to get up. and it takes a little bit more time. So any ways that we can clean the environment as well too during that, just to ensure that we're continuing to grind off as much as we can and keep going. Let me see a little bit more what he's got going on here. Still cleaning it up. Let's go a little bit further. Swapping the diamonds out. We got most of what we needed there completed. On to that next hallway now. And as you can see, works out in really tight places. Basically just two passes right here, as you can see, to be able to get through everything and to be able to deal with all that. Okay, that's funny. Just got some new AirPods. Um, those things, they break, they stay, but we really like the AirPods quite a bit for all of our guys. Helps them with the noise cancellation on top of having the AirPod or the noise protection as well too, just so that everybody is as safe as they possibly can be. And they have great battery life onto them and easy to charge, and also it's very easy to locate as well too, just in case they go missing. So, and most of the guys find that when they're using the AirPods, they don't really need to have those other larger blockers on. Although I still do recommend them. Obviously, the AirPods can bring down sound about 20 decibels, but those over ears can really take it down to about no outside noise on top of that, just to protect people's hearings. Obviously, wearing masks and all that for the concrete dust is super important, especially when we're grinding through all of the issues with all the glue. You never know what you're really dealing with. In some cases, it's also important to test for things such as asbestos, etc., as well too, just to make sure that you're making sure that everybody, primarily onto tile, onto those cases, as opposed to carpet and things of that nature. But still very important to make sure that all of your people are staying as healthy as possible with what is going on for them as well too. And we'll move the camera here ahead because I think that, as you can see, they're taking the babies off. This is what we recommend for ourselves. Get some zip ties, take them off. They like to put them on these bags. We have, again, the new upgrade that I'll show you guys as time goes on, but we have a little bit of a better upgrade nowadays for all these so that we can get just doing deliveries, drive-by deliveries right here. Taking this one off too. Want to cinch them really nice, get a little bit of a spread onto there so you can bring those through. And you also still have the ability to cradle it with on both sides with your hands there, and then boom, easy peasy. And then pick up the cart afterwards. Getting into a little bit more crazy stuff, stuff to chisel off, people making repairs. We want to really make sure that we're dealing with the best actual surface possible so that, what we're binding to is actually going to stick onto that for the coating there. So taking the jackhammer to this, little jackhammer, chisel, just useful for the tiny, small stuff. Sweep that all out, get rid of all that kind of stuff, and then get to grinding. As you can see, this stuff still has that thick glue, so they're also probably going to come in here through with the big vacuum as well on top of that. But they want to get through some of these areas here that are a little bit harder with the hand grinders at that same time. As you can see, coming through with the big boy right now. A little bit of maneuverability, obviously, since it's 25 inches and this room is very, very small, but nice, helpful way to get started. Get rid of all that stuff that they just chiseled out. They're coming through, cleaning that all up now. Then boom, bada bing. Again, very tight, but what they wanted to do or very tight in this area, but what they were really trying to accomplish here was just due to how thick that stuff is, if they had to come in and through here with their hand grinders, it would have been an impediment towards their actual progression. So they wanted to come in here with the big grinder first to knock all this stuff down as much as possible, and then just take care of it with the small hand grinder afterwards for them. And as you can see is it's still pretty tight into here. They're still able to maneuver it, put the hands rails onto that thing pretty high. Quite a bit of maneuverability in there in general. So doing a pretty good job with it. Again, trying to get rid of all the old glue, tile, all the annoyingness that's on there so that we get down to the bare concrete and get a really good scratch onto it as you see there as well too. Even being able to deal with this drain that's there in the middle of the floor as well too on top of it. No problem whatsoever. Here's a little scene on that same area that they had just prepped, prepared, and now what had happened before was they went through this drain beforehand. Let me move myself a little bit out of the way. What they did was there was a drain here before that they had tried to cement in and take care of, but we wanted to get rid of it because as you can see, it's literally that easy to chip it off. So if we're going to coat over that, we need to make sure that it's actually something that we can coat over instead of it just looking nasty like this is with something that was, just kind of taken care of in no time. And if we're able to beat that out and clean that up as much as that was, it's important to be able to deal with it as well too. And now what are we doing here? We are going through again, taking that jackhammer, I believe, trying to get rid of some more of this nastiness. So again, if we're able to knock out all of this stuff with just an easy chisel like that, it's very important to be able to then take rid of it, get rid of it, put in things that are going to bind better, clean the concrete so that the adhesion is a lot stronger onto all of that, and just really Here, what they're doing as well is taking through the angle grinder so they can clear all this out as well too. As you can see, because we don't want any dust binding to our two-part binder. So again, clearing this out, take one in the hand, take the hose there so you can collect as much of the dust that's there. And then keep it going. Keep going down all the cracks that somebody sees so that they can get all super cleared out and clean. And then take that same grinder all the way again. Yep. See that there with the hammer? Just beating that stuff out. It's no good. If anything goes over it, it's just footprints in here, but at the same time, again, you don't want anything like that happening to your floors. You don't want any pop outs happening. You really want to make sure that you can break down anything so that you know what foundation you're working with onto there. I'm gonna speed it up just a little bit, just in case they don't do anything here. They're moving all the product in for the base coat now, getting everything prepped, worked on, and more grinding. Let me go a little bit further, see what's going on. Get some more. There we go. Filling in all the extra joints like we were saying before. So this is our two-part binder that we use, all Resin Works products as well for our kinetic patch as it's called. You can repair a crack after you splay it out like this within about 20 to 30 minutes. So very, very fast return to service onto there. It'll essentially just gray over time as you see there. Has pretty good mixability into it. And if you really need to make it go further, you can also put some sand into there. So essentially part A, part B, they do harden from being able to actually move them and work them within about 5 to 10 minutes. So you do have to be quick with it. But just deal with batches in the correct size and you should have no problems at all with that. We vacuumed out all these cracks super hardcore beforehand though, so that there would be no issues, although that is still important to do too, because of like what I was saying before, you want to make sure that everything is as clean as possible so that you're binding to the best foundation possible for everything that you got going on. And let me go a little bit more ahead just in case these guys are just waiting for it to cure, I think. Yeah, as you can see, it's kind of going a little bit more gray if you're seeing that there. It's a good sign. Oh, there we go. Some more patching. As you can see, again, starts out with kind of like a brownish kind of consistency to it, and then over time, what it'll do is it'll harden up. What they're trying to do here is just to over blend it so that it's above the cracks. Because as much as you work with it, it's still important for this to also still be above where the cracks are so that when you go and then you grind it down afterwards, you have a whole complete seamless floor onto there so you don't see any of these cracks through all the flake and the base coat onto there as well too. So again, not very much time to work with it, but they're just kind of working it in, working it in, working it in so that they can get the best out of it. And let me see if there's a little bit more here. Yep, just working it and then letting it go. It's a little bit before for when they were grinding. Taking the diamonds off, as you can see here with the base head, you just hit them with the hammer. They get a lot of dust into them, usually using 2 segments most of the time. 9 total diamond heads onto there, and then swapping them over. for that initial. These are the PCDs, like I was saying as well too, where you can see that it has one segment head, and then it does have those two different heads that are very, very small. But what those are doing is those are the ones that are actually doing a lot of the work and gouging the floor quite a bit more. Going through, as you can see, they now have grounded down all of those lines, going in for one last final pass through with all the tight stuff like we were talking about with the smaller vacuum or smaller grinder, which is the Prep Master Junior. And just putting some extra work into it onto these tighter areas that we can't traditionally as easily get into with our big grinders there, just due to the size of them. So putting some past final work into it, really getting that last good scratch onto the concrete, as you can see there. Nice and slow. We love this machine, but for like high production and everything, it becomes a little bit more difficult to use it because it can only do about 150 to 200 square feet an hour, where the 25-inch can do about 600 square feet per hour. And then you can go even bigger with things such as like Levinas, the new 31-inch Levinas. Those will go about 800 to 1,000 an hour. So it's all about the speed at which you can do things as well too on top of that, and taking that into account for all the goals that you have. But grinding over that patch, as you can see, a little bit more gray onto it, a lot harder, and then just taking that last bit of it so that we have a fully seamless floor all the way through. We like to use this machine because as though it is very aggressive, it won't have so much head pressure as the 25-inch. So then while we're doing this, we're not really taking too much off of that top bit of the concrete, so that you don't have any variance inside of the floor, any waviness, or any issues that present themselves like that onto there. And just finishing up with that, let me see how this goes over here. Yep, just finishing those last cracks up, and then we are fully ready for the top coat. Top coat, or the base coat actually. Base coat with the flakes. We're using a moisture vapor barrier epoxy for the base coat, and you see a lot of the product there as well. Like I was saying, fully vacuum the whole entire floor as much as you can. We like to start with the edges first with just the hand vacuum tube, and then we go over to the flat one. We run it all the way through, and then we go tight with it on the backswing onto there. So I think the next one, if I'm correct, as we go into here, is going to end up being when we're starting the base coat there. Yeah, let me see here. Perfect. So as you can see, we like to use a notched squeegee. What that allows us to do is to be able to know that when we are putting this product out, we're actually getting the right square footage per gallon onto the material. Squeegee has basically teeth onto it, so it'll only allow you to dispense as much product as is necessary at that time. So as you can see, we're really working with it into a puddle, and what happens with that puddle over time is the puddle ends up getting pushed out, and then whatever is left over is still your excess product that you have to be able to utilize at that time. Also, we like to have the guys be able to cut in beforehand so that when he's bringing that squeegee across, he doesn't have to worry about it getting too close to the edges. Onto this one, they will be putting new baseboard up, so we did have a little bit of leeway there, but at the same time, we like to really not overdo any of the excess product onto the edges or anything like that, because it's wasted product, first of all, but at the same time, it's just unnecessary. As well, as long as you're actually getting the right square footage still into those corners, which is when he's going over with a very, very light squeegee at the very end into those corners as well too, as he's trying to span out the whole floor. And since we are using a a moisture vapor barrier epoxy, or just in general, most epoxies will last quite a substantial amount of time, so you don't have to worry about them curing too quickly like your normal polyaspartics, which end up being a lot of fun if you've ever used those to be able to try to get all the product out in a very, very time efficient way. So I'll keep working on it, keep splaying it out, and then going in with the flake after everything has been completely squeegeed out, and then we back roll one direction and then we back roll another direction just so that everything lays out as even as possible, on top of already gauging out how much we are using for the squeegee. So going back into it, uh, jumped a little bit, but as you can see, we are now going into that same big area that we grinded before. Again, everything really plays into everything, obviously. So for instance, if we didn't vacuum this so well, as you're going through the floor, you'd see more dust and more issues with the whole entire floor into your base coat as you're going through. Poor adherence, poor everything with it. So really always trying to make everything as professional and take it to the next level as we possibly can. So let me go back a little bit here. You always got even more people popping up as we're trying to finish the work, but as you can see here, he's back into it, taking that squeegee edge, has a nice puddle into it. Not too insane of a puddle, but still a good amount of puddle at that same time to be able to work with. And I'll move up here so y'all can see a little bit better. Still splaying it all out. He has the back roller there, the 18-inch roller. We like to use 18 inches. They're big enough to be able to use, but not so big that you end up losing out on downward pressure that you can apply onto those at the time. Still going, pour out another pail as necessary. And now we're picking up with Josh here. Josh working on that initial roll. As you can see, even with it before, you see a little bit of the splayed outness, but what's happening is eventually that additional that was outside of your notch ends up becoming a part of that, which is why it's important to squeegee it both ways. Because some places they will look light, of course, but what's happening is those additional areas that have so much more product are really what's carrying all of that whole 130 all the way through there for you. So that's helpful towards actually achieving the right size for you. Now, let me see, since I think that video's a little bit there. Oh, yeah. So as you can see, let's go back into it. We have a lot of working time with this. So again, about 40 minutes before you cannot actually utilize it anymore. So we like to use that time to be able to make sure everything is always in gear and working exactly how we need it to before we're working. This is a product though that you do want to get out of the bucket. Epoxy likes to cure faster when there's a larger quantity of it because it's giving off excess heat. So in a bucket, it's going to generate more heat and really cook itself all the way through. So you really want to get as much of it out of the bucket as you possibly can, as soon as you possibly can as well onto there too. And then just keep going. Keep going with the base coat there. Keep pushing it out as much as you can. Other guys back there back rolling at the same time. And then the other guys that we had there that were squeegeeing, if they're not necessary anymore, what they'll go and do is they will then go and start throwing the flake out. We throw all of our flake out until rejection. We don't really care about having excess onto the floor because we will just end up leaf blowing it, collecting it, and then we can reuse those onto new jobs. We can't recollect the flakes that we scrape though, so we'll scrape after we recollect all the flakes, scrape the whole floor down, and then from there we are completed with the whole entire floor. Usually we have just a little bit more of flake left over. It's not usually that crazy, but at the same time, it's useful to have it just in case for the future jobs onto there. So he basically has that whole entire room all the way splayed out, and then he'll be back here in a second after he finishes all the cut-ins over there into that door frame and everything for Josh. And then go back here, hit the squeegee, keep moving with the squeegee, and go all the way through the whole entire floor. And now he's back to it. They're working as a unit so that they don't end up getting too far ahead of each other. And Josh comes through with that final roll so that he can make sure everything is super, super beautiful. And again, as the product is on the floor, since it doesn't have so much square footage and quantity and density, it will last a lot longer than it would if it wasn't. So pouring it out onto the ground, polyaspartics, you don't want to do that because they will cure faster as they have more surface area and more moisture and more humidity to work with themselves. But epoxy does almost the exact opposite with it. So doing that final push out of it as Josh is finishing up the flake onto the areas, back rolling the areas so that they're always prepped before he flakes them. And then once he's done with that, he'll come back into this main area here, finish off the flaking, or finish off the back rolling of that. And then we'll be on to the front afterwards. There you go. Finishing that back roll. And let me bring it forward a little bit because I think that they are. Yep, so that was all the base coat. Now we're on to the top coat. Here we don't use a notch squeegee. We just use a flathead squeegee because the flakes combined with the flathead squeegee are going to give us the actual appropriate square footage as well as measuring them out because we're trying to hit 150 square feet per gallon at this time for the top coat onto there. This is important so that you maintain the coverage as well as having a floor that will last for some time. You don't want it to be too thick though because it will actually haze over. And again, like the density, like I was saying, if you go too thick with it, you run into the issues of improper curing and as well just does not look as good as you'd like it to. This is actually me here onto this. I'm now the person holding the camera here so you guys will get a little bit of a different view for everything that you got going on. They're trying to cut this in because again, it's useful to cut everything in instead of having to constantly just take the squeegee right up to the edge because it's hard to pull that back afterwards. But as you can see, they cut all that in and now he can just come back in, squeegee it right up to the edge, squeegee off any additional that he has to deal with at that time too, and then bring the back roller in after everything is squeegeed, laid out beautifully so that he doesn't have to worry about any of the product being too thick with the 18-inch roller or any of those issues whatsoever. So dragging it out using the pull method. We prefer to use the pull method. Some people will push it, but usually we find that pulling it does a little bit better of a work onto it for you. So continuing it, as you can see, the appearance of it changes quite a bit once that starts to happen. So it's very easy to tell when something is actually coated. And then as you can see too, Josh coming in with the back roller, doing that final first roll and then a second back roll in the specific way that you wanted to finish. So we wanted it to look you want to perpendicularly finish the lines as you finish them onto this. So they're cutting this room in as Talon is squeegeeing everything else out at the same time. And he's about to pull the squeegee over and take care of it. Sometimes people have to jump over and also help cut in if an area is too big, as you can see here, just so that when the squeegeeing occurs, it can really actually efficiently occur instead of just being cut off and then, oh, now I got to go and cut in, now I got to go do this. But as you can, if you can get a good start and a good leap onto it, that'll help out with somebody being able to then have other people come through. And I didn't even talk about this yet, but we like to wear the uh, spiked shoes. What the spiked shoes help with is being able to stand onto the floors. Because if you just had regular shoes on, you know, they would get nasty, they would get dirty, you would have everything kind of go into it. So we use the spikes onto there. They help out tremendously for our ability to do all that we can here. And they'll keep taking the squeegee out, keep going with it. And then this is a good view of Josh here, back rolling everything. We had laid out a little bit extra onto the floor here. So as you see, that past area there is a little light, but we're going to squeegee that all the way up. And again, we went a little heavy onto this, so he's able to kind of bring some of the product out. That comes with just the knowledge of really knowing where you're at on how much you place onto the floor. Because if you're doing a little bit less, it'll also still be noticeable at the end of the day as well too. So important again to ensure that everything is super consistent, and then onto that final back roll whenever it's completed, it's done nice, controlled, slowly as well too, so you have a nice glassed out floor. You don't want the floor to have too much too thickness in some areas and not enough thickness in other areas, because it will affect how everything looks. Again, now we finished all that up and we're on to the next batch. So we broke this up into two sections. Again, because using the polyaspartics, they cure within like 20 minutes. So that floor, as we were finishing it there in that room that you saw, was our last batch. And even there, that was pretty getting down to the line. It didn't look like it, but if you heard it, you would start to hear the material starting to thicken, starting to cure. There I am. And as it starts to thicken and cure, it's important to really be able to get that last final roll in, because you don't have very much time after that for it. So now, again, just coming in, they already cut everything in, coming in real easy with the squeegee there, boom, 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 and being able to clear the whole floor and get everything to the exact correct consistency onto it at that time too as well. And then pull everything out. All the other guys, they're already in there, back rolling everything as much as they can, so that when he comes back in right now, able to just pour out another ribbon of product and just squeegee that all the way down the floor in this manner, so that we can keep moving the floor all the way across. And we literally just got done vacuuming at that same time, so it's like right on target. Keep pulling the product. Nice little maneuver here. Again, since everything is cut in off the walls, it makes it a lot easier for somebody to be able to just take it right up to the edge, since they already know everything is as coated as it needs to be onto those edges especially. And then just keep going. Do that front roll, get yourself a nice area, and then do the final back roll that somebody would be doing across that area, and then branch back out, find another area for the max size that somebody wants to work with in. Usually about 6 feet is a good measure, and then roll everything out so that you have that nice consistency all the way across the whole floor, and then take that final back roll, make everything look beautiful, line it all up perfectly, and it is going to turn out very well. And one last final back roll right here, and then we're on to the next one. As you can see, it is a lot easier when you're working with such small areas, ironically, because you're able to do those back rolls in such a more controlled amount as opposed to having to do that big area like that we were dealing with before. And you'll see here soon enough because that's where we finish. But it's useful so that you don't have to deal with such huge areas, just so that you can really manage what you're working with. And again, as you can see, just finishing this up, before you can see a little bit of the waviness from the product sitting onto it. But once those final rolls are completed, everything turns just as it needs to. And then boom, last final roll, last final cut in area, and then boom, on to the next batch. We hung out for a minute since we had a nice termination point here off of that other room, and then we'll bring right back into it onto that final area that we have, which is the area that had all that crazy glue at the very beginning, and then as well that area, the huge area that we're going to finish. Just a final look, and then here we are. This is that wall right off of that hallway that we were just finishing there with that room that we took that big grinder through, as you guys could see. Dressed everything up really nice and beautiful for everyone there. And then now going straight through it. And again, there's that hallway that I was just saying that we just finished over there. It had a nice termination point where essentially a saw cut was for the new concrete there. We wanted to terminate it there. They'd be putting a threshold in afterwards. And as well, again, like I was saying, the polyaspartics don't have very long to work with them. So we wanted a nice termination point so that we could do a easy reset on everything that we were working with. And again, going back into it, these rooms, again, a little bit more wide, so you're using more product. And as well for that back final roll for somebody, you want them to have enough room where they can work, but you don't want it to be so far ahead that the guy who's squeegeeing is so far away that it's harder for that squeegee guy to be able to catch up. Sometimes you can use two squeegee or you can use two squeegeers and two rollers. That'll help out as well too, as long as everybody else is able to get in and get cut in really easily as well. Really just depends on how many guys you got going. Especially for me being the guy behind the camera as well too. It's important that, you know, they're able to get everything kind of moving without me being able to help as much as I'd like to onto the floor. Even though they're way better than I am at doing any of these floors too. So and we roll it all the way out. And it's also important as well too, as you can see, for managing how much product you're actually putting down, and also for the next uh, making a new batch, right? So as you can see, we were very close, but now they're off making a batch that if they had already created the batch right now, they would have been able to finish that area without having to worry about too much of this last bit of rolling in or etc. onto it. So always important as well to call out when you'll be needing the next batch or when you're on to the next batch and everything that's going along with that as well too. Doing that final back roll. Sometimes you want to check, see if there's anything in the floor that you're finding either through your roller or just over time, right? Because dust, other things of that nature can get in the way. Um, and it's just free flowing in the air. So it's important to be able to clear those things because once it's in the coating, you're never going to get it out. Doing the final rolls here, do the final back roll all the way across it, making it look beautiful. Working at as a team, even though they're tight with it, you always want your cut-in people, of course, to be a little bit ahead of you so that you're never in their way and they're never in your way too. Taking this now, one thing again that we could have done a little bit differently here is instead of him manually cutting that in, at this point, since we're on such a big area of the floor, having another person take that squeegee right up to the edge and then having somebody cut in, just as it is with the grinder, can be way, 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 way quicker and more beneficial for somebody so that those guys are freed up to be able to do what they need to do as the other people are doing what they need to do too. So just as you see here, boom, taking that right up to the edge so that when the guy's ready to cut in, makes everybody's life a lot easier onto that as well too. And we'll just keep going. Like I was saying before, sometimes once you get into these areas, becomes a little bit more of a struggle because you cannot squeegee out as much, nor can they squeegee, or nor can they back roll that quick because you're doing so much area at that same time. So in cases like this, it can be beneficial to get, for instance, one person who is squeegeeing out the material like crazy, and then another person who ends up being a double roller, and then you also have another squeegee guy who's really making sure that all of this stuff is tight during those times too as well. The guys are really keeping in really, really well with all of their cutting in and whatnot. But at the same time, you can help out with getting them really cut up against the wall with that squeegee at the same time instead of them having to manually do all that squeegeeing themselves. Pouring the product out, helping the guys out, making their lives a little bit easier so that, again, whoever is the most important during that time, making sure that they're able to continue on and be the most important, like what they're trying to do and accomplish so that they can keep going. Because as you can see, the roller right behind him, he's right on to him entirely. Now, if he could have gone a little bit further, the guy could squeegee a little bit more and be able to get the product out even quicker because again, the only thing that matters is that final back roll onto the product and as well making sure that the product is as fresh as humanly possible as well at that same time. Pouring out all the product to keep it going with it. And I think as well as we get to this final bit here, let me go a little bit further. That is it. So hope you all enjoyed the video. Hope you all got something out of this. Feel free to like, subscribe, and we'll keep coming back at y'all with more videos. Peace.